If you want to know what someone truly thinks of you, watch how quickly they believe a lie. When I was 15, my sister ruined a $20,000 business account, blamed me, and watched our father lock me outside our remote lake cabin in a freezing November storm. The taillights disappeared down the mountain road, leaving me with soaked clothes, zero cell reception, and a father who told me not to come back until I learned respect. 10 years later, standing across from my parents in a high-rise downtown boardroom, my father didn't look angry anymore. He couldn't even speak. The coffee cup in his grip rattled violently against the porcelain saucer, his knuckles bone white. Because the influential man stepping up behind me wasn't a stranger, he was the one person my father had spent a decade hiding his secrets from, and the very man who saved my life. Growing up, my older sister Chloe could do no wrong. She was the golden child, the polished, charismatic daughter my parents bragged about at every dinner party. I was the quiet one, the kid who kept his head down, fixed broken appliances around the house, and managed the inventory for my dad's struggling freight business. The trouble started when Dad trusted Chloe with the firm's emergency ledger and client accounts during our annual winter trip to the family cabin. Instead of reviewing the books, Chloe gave remote access to a shady online partner she wanted to invest with, draining $20,000 in minutes. When Dad saw the empty balance, panic set in. Chloe didn't hesitate. Tears streaming down her face, she pointed straight at my laptop and claimed I had tried to trade crypto with the firm's backup funds to prove a point. She manufactured fake transfer logs on my screen while I was outside chopping firewood. Dad didn't ask for explanations. He didn't check the server timestamps. He grabbed my jacket, hauled me onto the porch, and threw my bag into the dirt. "You cost this family its lifeline," he roared, slamming the deadbolt in my face as the first icy rain began to fall. Chloe simply watched through the window, smiling. The mountain storm hit fast, turning the gravel drive into an icy slurry. Within 20 minutes, the wind had stripped away whatever warmth my soaked flannel jacket offered. I walked along the narrow shoulder of Route 9, shivering uncontrollably, my phone dead and my boots filled with freezing slush. The silence out there was terrifying, the only sound was the howling pines snapping under the weight of early winter ice. 2 miles down the pass, 2 headlights cut through the torrential rain. An old black truck pulled over, its engine rumbling like distant thunder. The door creaked open, and a tall, broad-shouldered man with silver hair and a heavy canvas coat stepped out. He took one look at my pale face, wrapped a wool emergency blanket around my shoulders, and hauled me into the heated cab without asking a dozen pointless questions. His name was Arthur Vance. He ran a massive timber and logistics outfit 2 towns over, living quietly on a vast estate after retiring from corporate transport. Back at his home, after hot soup and dry clothes, Arthur asked for my last name. When I said Hartman, the room went dead silent. Arthur's jaw clenched, his eyes hardening as he stared into the fireplace. Years ago, my father had cut corners, embezzled from Arthur's regional venture, and blamed an innocent junior clerk before vanishing to start his own firm. Arthur looked at me, seeing the exact same cruelty repeated a generation later. "You're safe now, kid," he said. "Tomorrow, your real life begins." Arthur didn't just give me shelter, he gave me a future. He legally took me in, put me through school, and taught me the real backbone of corporate logistics. Under his guidance, I learned how to audit freight systems, negotiate industrial contracts, and read financial ledgers with surgical precision. I threw myself into the work, letting the sting of that freezing November night fuel every late-night study session and every milestone. Meanwhile, my biological family never looked for me. Dad had convinced himself I was a delinquent who fled out of shame, and Chloe remained the center of their universe. Through public industry channels, I quietly monitored their trajectory. Dad had poured everything into Chloe's lavish lifestyle and an ill-fated luxury consulting firm she founded after college. With zero work ethic and a habit of reckless spending, she bled Dad's company dry, masking the deficits with high-interest business loans. By age 24, I had graduated top of my class with a degree in supply chain finance. Arthur brought me into his premier logistics empire, Vance Global, where I quickly earned the position of chief operations strategist. We expanded into automated regional transport, acquiring smaller struggling carriers across the state. 10 years after being left in the dark, I was no longer the defenseless 15-year-old on the side of a mountain road. I was the lead acquisition director at Vance Global, preparing the final buyout paperwork for a bankrupt, mismanaged freight firm called Hartman Express. The conference room on the 42nd floor of the Vance Tower was silent except for the low hum of the projector. My parents and Chloe arrived 20 minutes late, acting as though they were doing the investment board a favor. Chloe was dressed in designer clothes paid for by unpaid corporate debt, holding a glossy pitch deck. Dad looked frail, desperate, clutching a worn leather portfolio containing the remnants of his ruined company. They thought they were meeting a private venture capital buyer who would rescue Hartman Express from total foreclosure. When I stepped into the room and took my seat at the head of the mahogany table, all three of them froze. Chloe scoffed, crossing her arms. "What is this, a joke? Did you hire my delinquent runaway brother as an intern?" I didn't answer. I simply opened the master buyout ledger, turning the screen toward them. On the monitor was a full forensic audit detailing Chloe's decade of embezzlement, unbacked loans, and the exact IP address from 10 years ago that routed $20,000 out of Dad's emergency account, registered directly to Chloe's personal laptop. Before my father could process the screen, the heavy double doors opened behind me. Arthur Vance walked in. The moment Dad's eyes locked onto Arthur, the color drained completely from his face. His skin turned an ashen gray. The ceramic coffee cup in his grip began to rattle violently against its saucer, a sharp, clattering rhythm that echoed across the boardroom. His knuckles turned bone white, his hands shaking so hard he had to set the cup down before it shattered on the glass table. "Hello, Thomas," Arthur said, his voice deep and absolute. He placed a heavy, reassuring hand on my shoulder. 10 years ago, you threw your son out into a freezing storm to protect a thief. Today, that boy owns every single debt note your company has ever signed." Dad dropped into his chair, utterly broken. Chloe tried to stammer out another rehearsed excuse, claiming the digital records were forged, but the cold silence in the room swallowed her words whole. The board attorneys didn't blink, the evidence was ironclad, certified, and fatal to their business. "Son," Dad whispered, tears finally pooling in his eyes as he reached out a trembling hand across the mahogany table. "Please. We're family. We made a mistake that night, we were under so much stress." I looked at him, feeling no anger, no malice, only a profound, liberating stillness. "You didn't make a mistake," I said quietly, sliding the foreclosure deed forward. "You made a choice. You chose a lie because it was easier than looking at the truth. I signed the liquidation acquisition, transferring Hartman Express's remaining transport assets under Vance Global's management and stripping Chloe of every corporate title. As security escorted them out of the building, Dad looked back one last time, defeated. I didn't watch them leave. Instead, I stood beside Arthur by the floor-to-ceiling glass, looking out over the city skyline, finally at peace. The storm was over.